Funding for New Mexico in Focus is provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, a cause for celebration. A roundtable of Black community leaders walks us through the history and cultural significance of Juneteenth in New Mexico. And
we have to be working on poverty. This is the root underlying cause of all of this. So all of these things tied to poverty.
How to grow access in a pharmacy desert. City Councilor Nicole Rogers connects the dots between addressing poverty and the pharmaceutical needs of the International District. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm executive producer Jeff Proctor. Last month, the Albuquerque Health Equity Council informed city councilors that the International District is now considered a pharmacy desert, with no pharmaceutical services in walking distance for most people living in District 6. The council spotlighted the problem for city leaders while proposing several sites in the area for future pharmacies. Coming up later in today's show, senior producer Lou DeVizio asks Councilor Nicole Rogers about the dwindling medication options for residents in her district. But much of our focus this week will be on Juneteenth in Albuquerque, with its main events scheduled Saturday from 11 to 11 on Civic Plaza. Juneteenth commemorates the day slavery ended in Texas, June 19, 1865, 2 years after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. President Joe Biden proclaimed June 19th as a federal holiday in 2021. But celebrations here in New Mexico have far deeper roots than that. Folks in our state have been commemorating Juneteenth since the 1970s. This week, we're grateful to hear from some of the community leaders who championed those first events here in Albuquerque. Over the next hour, Lou will host 3 roundtable discussions featuring some of the most influential Black elders from Albuquerque and beyond. Our goal is to understand the holiday's history here and across the country, its importance in communicating and celebrating Black culture in a state where African Americans are too often overlooked, and how a collaborative effort that spans generations is working to preserve and advance the interests of Black New Mexicans.
Welcome everyone to the first of 3 roundtable discussions centered on Juneteenth. I'm happy to be joined by this esteemed panel of formerly recognized living legends in some cases in Albuquerque.
Thank you.
Mr. Joe Padrell.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Rita Padrell, Reverend Dr. Charles Becknell Sr., and Professor Marcia K. Hardiman. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Now, Juneteenth is a celebration, of course, of freedom, emancipation for African Americans in 1865. Starting with you, Mr. Padrell, what does emancipation mean for Black America then, 160 years ago, and today?
Well, I think it depends on the individual you ask. I think it meant a new lease on life, actually, a change from a previous place to another place. I think the transition is from bondage, enslavement to me, liberty is the word. That's the one I think about when I think about emancipation, being the bridge to liberty and the responsibility of it. Yeah.
I guess building on that, what does Juneteenth mean to you now in 2024? And I'll throw that question around to everyone, but starting with you.
Every year that I celebrated, I've been consciously celebrating since June of 19th, 1956. There's a growth that my mind, my body, my soul takes place. Juneteenth is an exercise to me, and I get a chance to grow into my consciousness. And I've always thought that that's what everybody else was going through because I was going through it. But it's growth and understanding of life, liberty, and the challenge of it all.
Ms. Padrell, how about you? What does Juneteenth mean to you?
Juneteenth to me means history. It means a history that we should know and acknowledge, and it means a history that not only impacted us as a people, it impacted this nation, and it impacted the world. You know, so Juneteenth and the legislation of Juneteenth, the whole world was looking at it. It was about to change the whole world. And I'm just hopeful that the celebration of Juneteenth takes us back to a celebration of history and gives us a truer sense of the ambiguity that we have as a country around the issues that Juneteenth brings out.
Reverend Dr. Becknell.
I remember growing up in Hobbs, New Mexico. As a young boy, I remember us celebrating Juneteenth, but I didn't know what it meant.
Right.
It just seemed like a big gathering of people, and we got together and had barbecue and, you know, all of that. We celebrated Juneteenth. But when I realized what Juneteenth really meant, you could not have Juneteenth without talking about slavery.
That's right.
Slavery drove us to Juneteenth.
Good.
The Emancipation Proclamation that freed the slaves, but it freed the slaves only in those states that were in rebellion against the United States. When Lincoln signed that, it opened up an avenue and a consciousness of people that freedom might be possible. Juneteenth to me means that we got some unfinished business.
Right.
It means that we still got some work to do, because a lot of the things that we were facing in Juneteenth, the furniture right now has just been rearranged. We are still facing a lot of those same issues. Juneteenth didn't end slavery because Abraham Lincoln didn't have the authority to free the slaves that were not in rebellion against those states that were not in rebellion against the United States. But Juneteenth signified an end to slavery as an institution in the United States. So what it means to me is we need another movement. We can celebrate because it was a significant event in our history, but we cannot be happy. There's just nothing to be happy about because we still have some work to do.
Professor Hardiman.
I like everything that was said. I'm going to say that maybe different perspective. I'm the ultimate optimist here, I guess. Juneteenth for me is all the history, a reflection of our challenge to continue with social struggles. But more than anything to me, it was a coming together of community. And that's what I reveled in the most. My daughters, who were born and raised in New Mexico, thought from celebrations that we began to participate in from the time I came to New Mexico with Joe and his family, they thought Juneteenth was a bigger deal than the 4th of July because that's what we did together, and they looked forward to it. They were eager. I'm originally from the Midwest, from Indiana and from Louisville, Kentucky. We did not celebrate Juneteenth when I was growing up in the 50s and the 60s. So to come here in the 70s and to be introduced to that was just like, wow, it was just amazing to me. I think all of those things that are still ahead of us, it's a reminder that our work is undone, but it's a time that we celebrate our survival and, more importantly, the thriving of a community that's had to overcome the odds generation after generation after generation after generation since we hit North America. So it's a victory time.
Ms. Padrell, what role have women played in developing these celebrations specifically here in New Mexico? And how has that helped foster a wider appreciation and understanding of Black culture in New Mexico?
What role did women play?
Yeah, have they been a driving force in particular? Has this been a collaborative effort across the whole community? Or have women individually, not as people, but as a group, pushed this in any way in particular?
I mean, when Joe started doing some of the Juneteenth celebrations, I know women were a crucial part of pulling things together and organizing. So Mrs. Merritt was one of the, well, it's kind of like Marcia said, it's community. And I really think that Juneteenth, for us as a people, when I look at Juneteenth, I really don't separate the men and the women. You know, I really think it's a joint, something that was a joint effort that we did together and that we shared together, and everybody gave what they would give to the event. Whatever skills you bring in organizing and getting food, in whatever skill, working with young people, that's what it was. So, you know, I think I agree with Marcia. It's a real community. I would just hate to say the women did this and the men did that. No, we did it all. We did it together.
We picked up the baton. You know, it really is a team effort. As Joe taught us how to celebrate, I think that's at the minimum to make a consciousness. I hear what you're asking. We moved from, okay, help me, Joe, used to say from your parents' backyard to, what was in between before we got to Roosevelt Park?
A number of other parks.
Okay, so park. And then we began to celebrate on the plaza. Kathy McGill and I did the organizing down on the plaza, and then we outgrew, praise God, the Civic Plaza and moved to the State Fairgrounds. So as we saw that community grow, we included the diversity of New Mexico. There were red people, black people, brown people, white people, name every kind of people who wanted to enjoy the celebration and who gave us the opportunity to teach them about our history. So a good passing of the baton from the beginning of the team to some of the women who picked it up and took on from there. But let me tell you, well, I can't even say that. I almost said the women did an awful lot of cooking in those booths, but we had the brothers cooking too. So.
Reverend, I know you have a unique perspective on this. How has the church specifically played a role in the sovereignty of Black culture here in New Mexico in particular?
Well, the church has been the essence of the spread of Black culture because the church in our community was the only institution, in terms of my growing up in a segregated environment, we went to the church for everything.
Yes.
It was the original social services agency.
Yes.
And so the culture, like Marcia was saying, people coming together, men and women, we bred the culture and the culture spread. Juneteenth was originally a Texas holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when Texans start moving to Indiana,
Migration, that's right.
to California, to New York, they took the culture with them.
That was called the scattering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had these black people in the park from Texas celebrating. And people said, what are you guys celebrating?
That's right.
I want to get in on
That's
this.
right.
And it just grew and grew to the point that it just became a cultural event in our community.
You know, if I might add,
Absolutely.
in an attempt to be brief, I think my first experience with Juneteenth, I'm the son of a sharecropper and his wife, and we worked in the cotton fields. And my dad told me that you will be out here in the field unless it rains or lightning. And on the 19th of June, 1956, he said, we don't have to work today. So, and I said, what's going on? You know, in my own language at the time. And he said, we're going to celebrate the 19th of June. Had a little park called Silver Falls. And we didn't work that day.
Right.
And what amazed me was how we had been able to tell the people that my dad worked for, not working today. And when I talk about liberty, I'm talking about the value that we put on ourselves in the celebration of this particular event. And it was an all-inclusive thing. Church is the center of it because, you know, the spirit of God is the center of Juneteenth. Yes. I mean, so it's all tied. Women had their roles, men had their roles, different people did different things. Key thing is that people felt a sense of ownership. God bless the child who's got his own. And I got from that as an 8-year-old kid. We own this thing.
That's good.
Ownership was really, that struck me, you know, and I was glad we didn't have to work that day. It was hot. But that was really powerful. And it connected every aspect of the community, you know, even the people that didn't go to church. They respected the fact that that's mainstream.
Can I tag onto that when Joe talked about his dad saying you don't have to work today? In that day and that time, that was a big deal. The significance of that day that you did not have to work was humongous.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your time. We'll welcome each of you back over the next hour here, starting with a conversation focusing on this year's celebration in particular, right after this.
Have you ever had to postpone a bill? That's situational poverty, right? And everybody can relate to that. There's generational poverty, right? And that's what we see a lot of in District 6. The generational poverty that keeps people in this cycle that you can't go to your mom and say, hey mom, how do I get a leg up? Because mom was in poverty, grandma was in poverty, great grandma was in poverty. So I think we have to do the education so people don't see it as such a other thing, and that you too have dealt with everybody has dealt with situational poverty at one time or another.
Welcome back. I'm joined again at the table by Reverend Dr. Charles Becknell Sr., Professor Marcia K. Hardiman, Tim Green, Tim Green IV, Cultural Change Leader at the City of Albuquerque's Office of Equity and Inclusion, and Ron Wallace, publisher of The Perspective, highlighting Black issues since 1994. Now, Tim, I want to start with you. You've been integral in organizing this group, including Mr. and Mrs. Padrell, who we'll welcome back in a little while here. So many influential community leaders. How did this coalition form?
Well, I'm part of the Educational Planning Committee for Juneteenth 2024 this year. And I was working with Councilor Rogers last year talking about the educational aspect and the cultural aspect of Juneteenth. And so she invited me in to start working with the group, the planning committee. And I really started to think about what Juneteenth means for the city of Albuquerque and for the state of New Mexico. And for me, we can't talk about Juneteenth without talking about history, without talking about our elders and the people who have brought Juneteenth to the city. And so I started to speak with Nicole about who do you think would be best to create a panel in the evening that can talk about the history, what it means today, and what it should mean for the future in terms of passing that baton that Ms. Hardiman talked about. And so that's a little bit about how it formed. Joe and Rita have been influential in my life for many years, along with Dr. Charles Becknell Sr. And then I have just been blessed to be around Ron Wallace and be in the company of Marcia Hardiman. And so
You're so sweet.
And I thought this would be a good panel. It'd be and it has a diverse group of voices. They're all academicians, historians, scholars, so for me, this was just kind of a dream come true and a way for our community to listen to what we need to do to maintain ownership, just like Joe Padrell said, of a celebration that is about freedom and liberty. I mean, the essence of America.
Understood. Mr. Wallace, you've been involved in Black cultural events for years from a different perspective, covering them for a New Mexican audience that hasn't always been aware of the prevalence of Black culture here in our state. How has media coverage of Juneteenth and other major issues and events in the community helped solidify the identity of Black New Mexicans?
I think Juneteenth meant a lot because it brought our community together for good food, good entertainment. But the main thing that I felt that people walked away with was a sense of ownership, the sense of ownership of who they are, and the sense of ownership that they belong, and the sense of ownership of what, just you don't have to not have a voice in anything. And so that's where the publications came in.
Okay. How would you characterize the coverage of these events? And did you see the influence of your coverage in the number of people who were aware of them, the number of people who were aware of Black culture?
Oh yeah, it took off. I didn't have, when Marsha started with the Chronicle, and she got this major good job with the city, and so I said, well, what are we going to do? Because I was kind of like her technical person. Okay. And she said, I don't know. And so I thought,
you do it, Ronnie.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'll create the perspective and make it different. So the Chronicle went away, but the perspective came in, and started from there.
Understood. Now, this next question I'll direct to you first, Reverend Dr. Charles Becknell, and then you, Professor Hardiman. But starting with you, Reverend, how has the relationship with the city evolved over the last few years in the development of this celebration, bringing in people like Tim, but both for you as an individual, also the wider group of community elders like we all have gathered here today?
Well, I don't know how to say this, but when Joe Padrell talked about ownership and the city got involved and started putting money into it, I had some problems with that because the ownership seemed to be shifted to, we need money to put this on. When we all got together at one time and just had a big celebration in the park, it got commercialized, and this is why I'm so disturbed by the commercialization of Juneteenth. We need to retain ownership of this celebration. And when outside influences in terms of money, we depend on money to have a Juneteenth, I don't want any parts of that. Okay. And that's just me. And I'm not being whatever, but it's just a concern on my part.
I understand. Professor, how would you characterize the city's involvement and support in facilitating this event and how that's evolved over the years?
So let me try to go back.
Sure.
When Joe talked about the evolution of the celebrations from backyard to park to park to park, and when the city started the downtown Summerfests in the late 80s, I want to say, I'm having to remember, there was some money that was infused, and it was a wonderful celebration. I don't disagree with Dr. Becknell that it created some issues about who could, who couldn't, regulatory guidelines because it was a city event. We moved from Civic Plaza to the State Fairgrounds for exactly that reason. So when Kathy McGill and I organized, we figured, okay, we're going to have to start charging. That was the hardest thing in the world, to say we have to charge something to pay, for all of the lights and the, electrical and hookups for the bands and the stands. We had a gospel stage that went all day long, starting at sunrise until that night. We had a secular stage for the people that wanted to do their other stuff. No bad words, it's all family stuff, right? But it was still our own. And being able to control it meant we could incorporate new businesses. We could incorporate our own nonprofits to share the information. our churches could come and do their own thing. But I do want to say that money, it's hard to do things without money. Because even at Roosevelt Park, I can remember Joe contracting with Clarence Smith and his dad, that's history, to do the electrical, even around Roosevelt Park, because we needed microphones or the bands needed sound. So to create a balance that doesn't take away our control with overly regulated things is a challenge. Is it important? Absolutely, because the bottom line is still tell the story. Tell the story of Juneteenth. Share the celebrations. That's why the newspapers we thought were so important. Ronnie's laughing about being my technical person. He used to do all the computing. This is before we were real familiar with computers. But the launch of the Chronicle, the Cornish Russwurm Chronicle, named for the founders of the Black Press, Samuel Cornish and John B. Russwurm, the masthead said, "We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us." So the whole purpose was to tell our own good news stories that never get told in mainstream media. That's still the same problem today. So that's when I became the convention center director and Ronnie began, he told the stories that were missing. We told stories of these outstanding academicians and businesses and communities that were doing things for other people in the Black community that nobody else would have heard of. And that's still the same problem. Back to Dr. Becknell's point, the issues, I say often what's old is new again. It's the same issues that we're still grappling with. Okay. Don't let Juneteenth die.
Now, with all this historical knowledge that you bring up, do you feel any responsibility as a term that you flinched at earlier in our pre-conversation, as a community elder, to pass on that knowledge, but to also lead these discussions and these collaborations?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to say this briefly, and then I'm going to pass that baton to Tim. Why am I still teaching at age 101? Because the information is important to pass along. And I believe every opportunity that we have to share the history of our people and the strengths of our people who keep on thriving and not just surviving are absolutely critical. Juneteenth just happens to be a culminating time that everybody else can be a part of it. And hopefully, as I tell my students, what you learn now, you need to go and teach somebody else. So what are you guys doing now, Tim?
Well, I think it brings us to Juneteenth 2024, where we're going to have a wonderful opening ceremony where we're inviting everybody in the community, right? So elders, all the different organizations across New Mexico to come out, and we'll walk together in an act of embodiment. And the youth are going to chalk out on the ground what Juneteenth means to them. So we've put out a questionnaire to the community, and we'll gather those responses, and then we'll have the youth chalk it out. And that'll take place at 11. And then at 1:30, we're going to have a session called Young, Gifted, and Black, where we're going to honor the academic accomplishments of our youth across the state. We'll have a poem. There'll be a Mentimeter, which will be a Q&A between the audience.
So you have to explain the Mentimeter for some of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Mentimeter it's just a Q&A, and it's a way that people can interact using their phone, their digital pads, or anything like that. And it'll be around the history of Juneteenth. It'll be about 15 to 20 questions. We did it last year. It was a great hit. Everybody loved it. And then in the evening at 5:30, or 5 to 5:30, we're going to have this panel here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history, the present, and the future of Juneteenth.
Understood. What responsibility do you feel, Tim, as a younger person, to blend these generations together?
Well, I think there's a great sense of responsibility, especially when you talk about the history of Black educational heritage and what that means for our community. And I want to quickly go back to what Dr. Charles Becknell Sr. spoke to. I think it's a fine balance, just like you said, right? Because Juneteenth has become a federal and national recognized holiday, which it has always needed to be. But at the same time, we have to walk that fine line of maintaining control and ownership to make sure it doesn't get watered down through commercialization, right, or getting whitewashed about what the actual sentiment and meaning of the holiday is. And so for me, I think being a Black New Mexican who has been raised here and understanding how unique we are within the country, I think it's very, very important that we continue these traditions, we maintain our culture, and we learn the lessons from our elders, so that way moving forward we can teach our children. We're living in a context now where our history, our culture is being banned across the country, right? And there's anti-Blackness, there's lots of racism that is still going on, anti-voting legislation that's being passed, right? So we cannot separate these issues from the history of Juneteenth and the true essence and meaning. And for me, if we don't bridge that gap between our elders and our youth, there's going to be a real problem moving forward in terms of who we are and understanding where we come from.
That's good.
Understood.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Wallace and Reverend Dr. Charles Becknell Sr. We're going to welcome you, Tim, and Professor back after the break. But for now, back to Jeff.
Over the course of 2023, residents in Albuquerque's International District watched as their lone Walmart and Walgreens locations closed up shop. With the departure of both businesses, most people found themselves without a pharmacy in walking distance of where they live. City councilors got an up-close look at the issue last month when the Albuquerque Health Equity Council labeled District 6 a pharmacy desert. This week, Lou sits down with City Councilor Nicole Rogers to discuss the lack of pharmaceutical services available in her district and to consider next steps to help those residents who are most impacted in a pharmacy desert.
Albuquerque City Councilor Nicole Rogers, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I want to start broadly here. When considering the International District as a pharmacy desert, which residents are most impacted?
I'm so glad you started with that question, because for me, that's who I'm really most worried about, is our most vulnerable. So our seniors, and I think specifically transit dependent residents of District 6, which from the data that I've been pulling, we have over 8,000 households in District 6 that do not have a vehicle. And there are even segments of families that have vehicles, but kids have to ride the bus, or one parent has to ride the bus. So there are a lot of transit dependent folks in District 6 that now have to go further. And if they need to get their medication on a Sunday evening, even if the pharmacy's open, transit does not run Sunday after 7 p.m. So I think for me, it's the most vulnerable that I'm worried about, especially our seniors.
Okay, so what options are available right now for people who live in that area who don't have access or the ability to drive?
Well, I think right now, because Walgreens is gone, CVS is gone, Walmart's gone, the closest place I would say is Smith's, but no, Smith's on Lomas doesn't even have a pharmacy they don't. John's Pharmacy, I think, is the closest that I can think of, where in my neighborhood on Wyoming, like just after Wyoming and Central area. Outside of that.
So how do they get there? How do they get their medication?
Yeah, I think that's why I'm worried. People either are having to switch to delivery, and then if you're doing delivery services, now they're charging for delivery for some because they're using places like DoorDash. I have a chronic illness, so I get medication every 3 months. And so even trying to myself navigate that system to get stuff, because I've been trying. So, okay, let's see. Let me go into the Walgreens app like they tell you to do and see if you can switch to delivery and how quick that is. I still haven't been able to figure that out. Even myself as a, intelligent person that is really good at technology. So I think right now that is the option, especially for our senior homebound folks and transit dependent folks, as they're trying to navigate how to switch to a company that will deliver your medication directly to you. Same with food delivery services. But again, that's an extra cost and burden for folks who already are, in poverty.
Now, you've proposed signing up residents for a program called Express Scripts, similar to DoorDash, which you brought up, but for pharmacies and medication. How exactly would a large-scale rollout of a program like that work? And would it be more difficult for anybody in particular?
It is difficult, because I think what I learned from my time in healthcare is that's dependent on if your specific provider for your healthcare allows you to use Express Scripts. So not every carrier of every healthcare offerer in our state can use Express Scripts. So I think that's the biggest barrier is we would need, as I'm researching, we would need some really statewide legislation or something to mandate that our MCOs allow folks to use delivery services like Express Scripts. I think, or how do we mandate that they can't charge the delivery for that? But then the pushback is going to be, well, how do you expect us to be able to do that and eat that cost, right? So there's a balance to that as well. So this one's a tough conversation. But what I do know from research is where local spending is higher for local governments, life expectancy is higher. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about people's life expectancy. So when we talk about food deserts, we have to talk about pharmacy deserts and the supply chain for both of those items, right? For how do we even get our medicines to Albuquerque? How does that work? What is our food supply chain? What is our medical supply chain? Those are bigger questions that bottom line is this is people's life expectancy. And it's not okay that people who choose to live in District 6 have to have a lower life expectancy because we don't have fresh food in pharmacies to get the medicine that we need.
How did we get to this point? Why have pharmacy services in your district dwindled to this level, and what roadblocks are there to bringing them back?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors. We obviously hear about theft in places like Walgreens, CVS, Walmart. You've heard of that circling in the district. I fundamentally feel like we've always had certain types of theft in retail. I've worked in retail. There were loss prevention specialists and things, insurance to cover loss prevention types of initiatives. I think the difference here, though, is the organized rings that were going in, putting people's safety at risk in the stores. And I think companies had to make hard decisions about that. So that's a bigger conversation about public safety, infrastructure in my district around, do we have nice park? I mean, people don't think that matters, but it does matter to have infrastructure for parks and roads and lighting and places people want to live, where businesses want to come and stay. And I think that's a public safety issue. That's a healthcare system issue, access issue that we have. There's so many factors to this. And we have, when you think of unsheltered folks, not just even transit-dependent folks, the medical needs are huge for our community.
Now, the Health Equity Council has put together a map of proposed pharmacy sites. What are your thoughts on developing those sites into new pharmacies? And I know you've touched on it a bit, but what needs to be done first to allow that to happen?
Yeah, I think for District 6 specifically, I think we have to have some tough conversations about why our district has historically not been invested in. I think that's an issue. I think we have to begin to flood the areas that need it most with access to healthcare. We need more clinics that offer pharmacy services in the clinic, right? That is something that we can work with our health partners on right now. And with people like owners of John's Pharmacy to say, our mom and pop ones that have been in this community, how do we help them expand? And if they're willing to do that, right? How do we help them with the access to capital to be able to expand? I think that's, I would like to see us figure that out.
Okay. Now, we know Walmart closed in March 2023. Walgreens closed in November 2023. Those buildings are still empty in central part of your district. Are there any plans in the works to develop those sites to address this pharmacy desert, but also what you mentioned too, grocery access in the International District?
Absolutely. That's top of my priorities, and I think because it's top of communities' priorities. And so we absolutely are continuing to try to acquire Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, and I will keep saying Walmart is, really holding out for the highest bidders, I think. And so sadly, for me, my job is, I think for these particular sites, is to look at what's available to us if they're not willing to sell to the city. Talking with developers who may have access to the capital that I don't in District 6 right now, to be able to say, hey, how can you help? In talks with Walmart, in talks with these other companies. So that's kind of my strategy, is let's talk to all of the developers who are interested in these properties and talk also at the same time as we're trying to figure out how to acquire them. So I think We need to work together. I think it needs to be all hands on deck. We need to figure out how to stack capital to make these projects happen in District 6. I'd like to see a group of us went to go see the Silver Street Market model with affordable housing, farms. The only thing we would add to that is a clinic with a pharmacy to see how we can recreate that in District 6. City owns this Catherine and San Mateo lot. What if we can recreate that there with a clinic? Community wants access to healthcare, food, housing, and daycare. That's the top 4 things that I'm hearing during our strategy sessions and everything as we're out in the community. And so why can't we do that in a development and then keep that going throughout? And then home ownership and poverty. We have to be working on poverty. This is the root underlying cause of all of this. Because if a resident in District 6 is not in poverty, they can go somewhere they have a car to go somewhere to get their medication. They can afford the delivery to come here. So all of these things tie to poverty. And that's the root cause of all of this. And that's what we should really be tackling.
What can we do to make people aware that all of these issues are connected? And what's the first step to addressing those underlying causes?
Yeah, I think we have to have some education for community and not make poverty such an other thing like that's happening to someone else. Because as we're in the community teaching people about situational poverty, and have you ever had to postpone a bill? That's situational poverty, right? And everybody can relate to that. There's generational poverty, right? And that's what we see a lot of in District 6. The generational poverty that keeps people in this cycle that you can't go to your mom and say, hey, mom, how do I get a leg up? Because mom was in poverty, grandma was in poverty, great-grandma was in poverty. So I think we have to do the education so people don't see it as such a other thing, and that you too have dealt with everybody has dealt with situational poverty at one time or another. Everybody's heard the rob Peter to pay Paul saying, right? It doesn't matter where you come from. We've all had some type of situational poverty at some point in our life. And understanding that not everybody gets the same financial principles. That's why I talked about it in the campaign, and we are doing it and delivering on it in Office of Financial Empowerment. That's already off the ground. We got the strategic planning grant and we're also getting the implementation grant from cities for financial empowerment. And this is exciting because for once we can focus on economic development is important. Economic development is about business development, but financial empowerment is really about giving people in poverty the tools to get themselves out. And that's only going to help our community.
All right. City Councilor Nicole Rogers, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now for our final segment on Juneteenth and its unique significance here in New Mexico. Welcome back to Joe and Rita Padrell, Professor Marcia K. Hardiman, and Cultural Change Leader at the City of Albuquerque, Tim Green IV. Now, as someone who's had a driving role, Mr. Padrell, in Juneteenth events for decades, how would you characterize the importance of involving people outside the Black community in celebrating Juneteenth?
You know, the evolution of Juneteenth is beyond now. The essence of it is beyond the African American experience now. It's actually beyond the American experience. It is now a human experience. We've got to take the essence of Juneteenth and teach it to the coming generations. And that's one of the things I disliked about it becoming a national holiday is what was therapeutic about Juneteenth. That's not moving forward, because that's therapeutic not only for African Americans, it's therapeutic for Americans as well. And I think if we can hold on to that in the celebration of it, it'll be what we need, and it is the responsibility of the next generation. Sankofa is the term we use very often, but we've got to transfer the essence of Juneteenth, which is we need to learn and appreciate the similarities that we have. New Mexico is a very diverse state. Teaching it here is crucial. New Mexico makes Juneteenth, I think the Juneteenth in New Mexico is really different than all the Juneteenths in other countries because of the layout of people here. But the essence is relative to us all. And if we keep that, and we have to work to keep it, it's not an accident that you keep a sense of interrelatedness. We got to do that on purpose. We got to teach interrelatedness.
That's good.
Tim, what message would you like to give people outside the Black community about this Juneteenth celebration in 2024 in particular, and the importance of their involvement?
Well, even though Juneteenth is talking about Black history in particular, I think we're talking about American history in general, right? Good. And this idea of freedom and liberty that everyone has been speaking about, looking towards a new future, this is something that all cultures and ethnicities have shared throughout their plight or their history. You can study history and understand that a lot of us have been seeking freedom and liberty and joy for many, many years. And this is an opportunity for people to come and for us to really live in our multiculturalism as a state and the diversity. But at the same time, understanding the significance that Black people and the contributions have made to the Southwest, right? Prior to statehood, and then moving forward to today, right? With all of our wonderful counselors that are being elected, our judges, and all of the significant impacts, but also what we're gonna do in the future as a community. So for me, I just invite everybody to come out, celebrate with one another, and just lean into culture.
Understood. Now, with that in mind, and now that Juneteenth has been recognized as a federal holiday, and it's becoming more widespread, the understanding of it, is there any way, Ms. Padrell, any fear, I should say, of whitewashing or over-commercialization like we brought up in the last segment?
Well, I think the important thing about Juneteenth is the Emancipation Proclamation. And the important thing about the Emancipation Proclamation to New Mexico is how it affected New Mexico. So New Mexico and the territory of New Mexico may not even become a state, may not even have had the borders that it had, were it not for the Emancipation Proclamation. Because the Emancipation Proclamation allowed the War Department to have the United States colored troops, 200,000 strong. And that was the preamble for the development of the 9th and 10th Cavalry and the 24th and 25th Infantry, which will come to New Mexico and help New Mexico as a territory squelch rebellions, protect its borders, build forts. And so that is part of the history of the Emancipation Proclamation, how it affected this state, New Mexico, and how African Americans, because of the Emancipation Proclamation, come to the West and are part of the development of the West. So that history is really important for us to know.
Okay, I appreciate you sharing that. Professor, yes. How do we, as a larger multicultural community, walk that line that Tim spoke of a bit, of participating and supporting this holiday without trying to take it over? Is that possible in our current society? And
who's the we?
Not everybody outside the Black community to participate, okay. To recognize your ownership of the holiday.
Okay. Well, I think the emphasis on pluralism is critical. Black people would not have survived without white people and Native Americans. Native Americans would not have survived without Black people and white people and some Hispanics. Hispanics would not have survived. And as Rita said, this state is so unique from most other places in the United States because of the plethora of subcultures. But we tend to get along pretty well here. There are issues that keep coming up, but we want everybody to know who we are. We want them to respect our background, our culture, and we want to respect theirs. And I think, so here's a quote. Everybody knows Maya Angelou would say, when people show you who they are, you should, here's my more favorite one. We are much more alike, my friend, than we are unalike. We are much more alike, my friend, than we are unalike, in one of her poems. But we don't know how alike we are if we don't know our history. If we don't know that those soldiers came here to protect this land, if we don't know that some of those soldiers stayed here to establish black communities, Vado, Blackdom, if we don't, Tim talked about in the last segment, the young people having the chance to chalk out what Juneteenth is going to mean to them. I am so curious to see what they say, because that will teach us what we still need to be teaching them. What's missing? What are they not understanding? What have we failed to teach? So much of our history is getting lost, not just whitewashed, but I mean just totally forgotten, because we don't have enough venues, I'm going to say, to make sure that everybody knows that Black history is American history. And I, pardon me, I always say Black because Black people are, it means all inclusive. We are a nation that has incorporated Africans who don't relate to being African American, because that means of African descent born in America. But we have Frank Miranda, who used to be over the Human Rights Department, would say, you know, what about the Black Portuguese in Boston, where he came from, or Cabo Verdeans? Black people encompass the world. And I won't say that all of us have a little blackness in us, but, you know, if we're talking about unifying, the more we know, the more we'll learn to respect one another, to care for one another. And boy, at this time in our community, in our nation's history, if we haven't learned yet that we need to come together, we will all rise or fall together. And I want to see us not just survive, but thrive. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'd
Joe
like
has a thought, I think. You want to?
by all means.
You know, if Juneteenth, as it evolves, even as a national holiday, if it serves the purpose of educating us, making us realize what Dr. King said, we find ourselves in an inescapable network of mutuality. Mm-hmm. What happens to you happens to me. If Juneteenth facilitates getting that message over, and it can because of the story of Juneteenth, the Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil War, you know, the struggle with transitioning from being owned to owning yourself. God bless the child. If Juneteenth serves that purpose, and I think it will. I think it will because it needs to. I think people need what Juneteenth essentially says. I think we're going to be all right. But it ain't an accident. We got to do what Tim's doing. You got to do it on purpose. It ain't no accident.
Understood. On that note, Ms. Padrell, what do you think we all need to do, the Black community, people outside the Black community, to preserve the culture, the history, and the legacy of this holiday?
Well, I think one of the things we need to do is to educate ourselves to history. You know, during enslavement, we weren't allowed to learn how to read. But the thing is, we now know how to read, but we're still illiterate. Yes. We still don't know our history. We still don't know, as Marcia said, how we're connected, how we're interconnected. So again, and what Joe said, understanding history, understanding the ambiguity of history, understanding how even the Emancipation Proclamation left people behind. It actually left enslaved people behind because it allowed the border states to have slaves. So even after the Texans, African Americans who were covered by the Emancipation Proclamation were freed, you still had enslavement in Kentucky and Delaware, which does not end until we have the 13th Amendment. And that's history. That's knowing how things evolved. That's knowing our origin as a people, really understanding history, all of it.
How all the pieces relate.
You
have to put it's a whole puzzle that explains the history of America, and not that America's without its faults. We've certainly seen the issues that are cyclic, but the more we understand how it all fits together, the less caught off guard, I want to say, we will be.
And I just want to add to what Rita's saying, that the issue today is something that's been going on. She talked about anti-literacy laws, right? We're still seeing those being passed across the country when it comes to Black education. But I do want to uplift what's going on in New Mexico when it comes to the Black Education Act. I'm part of, I'm on the curriculum committee. And so there is an act in place right now to make sure that we teach, we maintain, and we hold Black culture and heritage inside of our schools, and make sure that it's culturally relevant pedagogy, to make sure that the content is appropriate, the curriculum. So I just want to uplift, there are acts in New Mexico which I think make us unique when it comes to preserving that Black history.
That's very good. Yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Are we out of time?
We are out of time, and I really thank you all for being here for this conversation. Thanks to Reverend Dr. Charles Becknell Sr. and Mr. Ron Wallace also. Thanks to Tim in particular and Counselor Nicole Rogers, who you also saw during this broadcast, for their work organizing and conceptualizing these panel discussions. As we mentioned, Albuquerque's Juneteenth celebration is Saturday from 11 to 11 on Civic Plaza.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus is provided by viewers like you.